Hey guys, welcome to Constantine's Culture. I am Daryl Constantine. Maybe this will be Constantine on Culture. I'm not sure exactly what it'll be called, but we'll be doing a couple of these pieces as I put up on the website, correcting some things on culture and just kind of clearing the air on a couple topics of importance. There's a few things, really two topics that I like to say that, second to the creators themselves, I consider myself to be really the definitive authority. And one of those topics is the New England Patriots dynasty. I always say, unless Bill Belichick corrects me, shut up and listen. On Star Wars, which is what we'll be talking about today, kind of the same thing. Unless George Lucas says otherwise, shut up and listen. And I think he would be in agreement with the way that I'm going to rank the films. There is a couple points that I think is maybe open for discussion. I'll let you know what those are, but for the most part, this is pretty definitive. I'll sort of forewarn any cringy boomers that hate the prequels. You might want to go watch a Matrix movie because you're not going to agree with the ranking. And I always like to say, people that don't like the prequels, there's something wrong with them psychologically. There's a lot of gamma male hatred towards these films. I think specifically towards Hayden Christensen, for whatever reason, cringy boomers, neckbeards, gamma males, these type, they really don't like him. So we're not going to get into that. We're just going to deal with reality, which is what we always do, and we're going to rank the films in order in terms of awesome to most awesome. So when I say that, what I mean is there's no bad movies here, okay? And the creator, George Lucas, has said that he wants it to be viewed as one movie. And it's interesting when you do that because you can really understand the scope of the accomplishment. This is really the greatest cinematic achievement, maybe one of the top, if not the top artistic achievements in the history of civilization when you put the factor of the technology and what it's led to. We look at the story, it does actually sort of form a perfect continuum that can exist without the Disney films, which actually contradict everything from theme, tone, everything about the Disney films is really a contradiction. So the right thing to do at this point is actually just cut them off and just deal with the Lucas 6 and just accept that as the story. Maybe someday in the future, if we do get the culture under control, we may go back and retcon the sequel trilogy and do something to correct that. But the way it is right now, we can just kind of cut those off. I may offer some comment at the end of the list about that. But I guess the only other thing to address, there's the discussion about what order do you watch the films in. Same thing, cringy boomers, they tend to tell you to watch the films out of order. They tell you to watch the original trilogy first and then the prequels. No, we have from the creator, the films are intended to be watched 1 through 6. You don't write a book and then have the audience, start in the middle and then go back to the beginning. So we'll watch the movies 1 through 6, and now this will be the ranking of from awesome to most awesome. So, okay, take a breath. I'm talking fast here. So for me, number 6, so this will be starting with awesome, building up to number 1, most awesome, is going to be episode 1, which was the first prequel film released in 1999, The Phantom Menace. This is a really beautiful movie, visually stunning movie. The landscapes of Naboo, seeing the Republic, seeing all of it, and of course the incredible lightsaber battle at the end. This stuff was really mind-blowing, and to see the old Republic after hearing about it and hearing about these things and seeing how it began, this is really incredible. Beautiful science fiction movie, and works as a very nice, fun adventure film. For me, the reason why it's going to be on my sort of lower end of the list is because it is the first act, and by that it's largely expository in nature. Lucas is introducing a tremendous amount of elements, characters, and themes, things that are going to play out over the next 6 movies. He's cross-harmonizing it. He's rhyming it with A New Hope, which is what he does. The pieces are all rhyming. It's arranged like a symphony. He's introducing you to what's going on in the Republic and where things are going. And he's throwing a lot of characters at you. So this one, for me, it's almost like those Marvel films where there's 35 heroes in space shooting at each other, and For the audience, there isn't as much to hold on to. It's not to that level. But for me, there's not as much emotional engagement because A, the characters are new, so we haven't seen things that are going to lead to that drama. And there's so many that we don't really fixate necessarily on one character. The most important character is Anakin Skywalker, but he's a 9-year-old boy. And Lucas makes that decision for thematic reasons. We understand that in the later films. For this particular movie, it does place limitations on what he's able to put with that character. It sort of renders Anakin as a visual reference and a visual contrast to Darth Vader, and that's kind of what's accomplished here with that. So we have a bunch of characters and they're thrown in and we get this very beautiful movie. It doesn't have the melodramatic level of engagement in the later pieces. So that's for me why it's number 6. Number 5, and this is a spot where you could flip these two and you're not necessarily going to be wrong. Number 5 for me is going to be A New Hope. It's going to be the original Star Wars movie. And this is a fantastic movie. This was a wonderful space adventure and works as a wonderful hero's journey, which is what Lucas, the basic core concept that he was bringing in with Star Wars. Where this one is going to be lower on my list, again, is because A, this is the introduction to the Star Wars universe. We don't have as much emotional attachment to the characters. And furthermore, on this one, there were limitations in place technologically for him. So it's very much restricts what he's able to do in terms of his imagination. We still have some things in this movie that are just really beautiful. Luke meeting Obi-Wan, that scene kind of still gives me goosebumps. The twin sunsets, what a beautiful, iconic scene. But you know, Lucas, after this, I mean, it was a struggle for him. He almost had a heart attack to make this movie on the budget that he had and all of the obstacles. And for him, you know, the next 30 years was about creating an empire, a digital effects empire that would enable him to make the movies that he wanted to make unencumbered. So this one was like that initial challenge. And really, historically, this movie is maybe the most significant. It is the most significant. This one just created blockbusters. This created everything that we have now. That being said, now that he's gone through the 6 movies, this one for me is on the lower end of the awesomeness spectrum just because it doesn't get as deep into the drama and the core story of the Skywalker family. Okay, take a breath. Now we're going to go up to number 4, so 4th most awesome, and this for me is going to be Return of the Jedi. This is a really neat movie, as they all are. The reason why this one is on the lower end, it does have some aspects, the storylines, the Ewoks. This is less engaging for adults, right? But let's also remember, these films are not for adults. These films are primarily for young adolescent boys to help them navigate as they mature into adulthood. The movies are so good, there's so much in there that really everyone is able to enjoy them. But let's not lose track of who these movies are for and want them to be for us. So those elements that are more child-centric, they're not going to be as engaging to an adult audience member. Where the movie is fantastic is where it needs to be, which is the core storyline between Anakin and Vader and the resolution of that with the Emperor, which is absolutely perfect. And in terms of bringing the 6 films together, it's just an absolutely perfect conclusion. It's very beautiful, and it's really done to perfection. So, okay, so now we're on the top half. Now we're on the best 3. You can switch 3 and 2, but you better have these 3 as your top 3. If it's not, you got to go back and watch the movies because you're missing out. These are a cut above. These are real. All 3 of these movies are standalone pieces in terms of artistic achievements. 3 and 2 you can flip. I will start with 3rd most awesome, in my opinion, is going to be The Empire Strikes Back. This is the best of the originals, certainly, by far. This is a fantastic movie. It's really flawless in terms of a pacing and editing perspective. There's really nothing in this movie that could be much better than it is. We have that really fantastic conclusion. People that want to watch the movies out of order, they will point to that as if you watch the prequels first, you don't get that plot twist, which is true, but if you watch them out of order, you don't get the plot twist that Anakin falls to the dark side. So now when you watch in the correct order, it's not, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's, wow, I can't believe he finally told him. And it is still has a tremendous amount of emotional resonance. The conclusion, the final scene, really beautiful artwork. And of the ones that Lucas didn't direct himself, this one definitely is the one that stands out as the best. Well, I guess there's only two he didn't direct. It was this one and Return of the Jedi, but this is the best of the originals by far. Really a flawless movie. Okay. Second best movie. This is going to be Boomers, cover your ears. Gamma males, cover your ears. It's Attack of the Clones. Great movie. This one, just like Empire Strikes Back, two perfect, flawless movies. I grew up during the prequels, so I'm just going to give the edge for me personally to Attack of the Clones. This is the one that came out when I was in high school, and this was the coolest movie. I remember Spider-Man 2, I think, came out, and I never even saw the Spider-Man movies. I just watched Attack of the Clones like 6 or 7 times. My friends and I, we sort of laugh about it. You'll see these articles coming out, or like, the prequels were secretly good. They secretly had it's like, this wasn't a secret, and they're not secretly almost good. These are great movies. We all knew this when we were watching them in high school when we were 15. There was a small crowd of internet trolls at the beginning of that stage, and they were very loud. And these were sort of original fans that actually didn't take the message. They didn't navigate into adulthood. They regressed, and they stayed in sort of their mother's basement. And they wanted the prequels to be really dark and grimy and negative. And, that just wasn't the case. And with Attack of the Clones, is a very dark film in some respects. It is a very dramatically intense film, but it's also a very beautiful film. And this is really where people don't like it. This is very classical sensibilities, and the film is an homage to old Hollywood, very much so. People that dislike this film also really don't know much about film history. They don't understand the James Dean movies that George Lucas grew up watching. They don't understand Gone with the Wind and this type of thing that Lucas is creating. And the literary traditions, the rich literary traditions, a sort of pair of star-crossed lovers set to the backdrop of a war. This is a very classically composed film, and it's just very, very beautiful. It's got really everything that you could want in it, and it begins to put that big piece together in that story arc of what happens with Anakin, and we understand why it was important to demonstrate the trauma associated at age 9 when he was taken away from his mother, and what that leads to here, and the larger themes that Lucas is painting about attachment and the consequences of attachment, and also contrasting that with this concept of compassionate love. And we could go into spiritual discussions here where the Jedi are sort of representing a Buddhist mentality, and we'll save that one for another discussion. This is just a great movie. We'll just leave it at that. That is going to be my second best movie, and this will go up obviously to number 1. This is going to be Revenge of the Sith. This is just not only the best Star Wars movie, this is the greatest film of all time. And I went to film school, so I feel qualified to say that, but this is a cinematic accomplishment. There's really nothing like this film. And if Attack of the Clones is Gone with the Wind with Rebel Without a Cause, Revenge of the Sith is sort of Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet. It's very Shakespearean, and we see the prequel arc come together perfectly, but then also the layer of symmetry that puts with the original films. One of the things Lucas is always doing in all of the films, he's always adding symmetry. Every successive layer adds symmetry. This is where the Disney films, this is where they can't be recognized because they actually contradict the symmetry. They introduce chaos and disorder. It undermines what has been established thematically in the first 6 films. So it's not in that universe. It's outside of it. But Revenge of the Sith is really going up to the conclusion, the whole thing, the way that it wraps in, and then the beautiful final stroke of ending with Obi-Wan handing Luke to Owen and Beru in front of the twin sunsets that Luke looks at later. It just, you can't watch this movie enough. And anytime you watch this movie, you're going to gain new insights. The more that you watch these movies, the more you will start to understand and see the cross-referencing, the rhyming, the whole thing. There's really a lot to be gained from studying these films, and artistically they are a very substantial accomplishment. So this has been something that's been on my mind for some time, to sort of put this list out, just because there's so much negative, cringy, boomer takes out there. It's been clearing up, and we're seeing now the prequels emerging, and this is naturally going to occur because things that are iconic stand out. Contemporary critics, they don't always have the appropriate reaction. The critics die, but the things that are real stand out. And these movies, all 6 of them are real. All 6 of them are a perfect piece in that puzzle. And especially, obviously, the prequels, which were just really that fantastic final layer. So, okay, so we talk about Disney for a little bit. Yeah, I will talk about the Disney films very briefly, because I do want to correct something here as well, which is the misconception that The Last Jedi is actually what ruined the Disney films. And while The Last Jedi has a lot of problems, I actually sort of want to stick up for Rian Johnson, because he's not the one that ruined the films. He's actually the one that tried to salvage it. J.J. Abrams destroyed the symmetry. J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy, what they composed and arranged for A New Hope, created a situation that was just absolutely, virtually impossible to harmonize into a coherent way that was going to work with the films. They basically sort of made it impossible for the Skywalker family to survive. I mean, and this is where I think Lucas's thinking was, look, I told my story, and his story is the story of the Skywalkers. And the thought was, I won't be here forever. I've told my story. People enjoy this, so let me pass it along to Disney, a trusted large company with family entertainment, so that they can continue writing the story of the Skywalkers. And, Disney, essentially in the first film, they basically kill off the family. I mean, that's the end conclusion, is that they've killed the Skywalkers, and they've actually sort of taken the name away from the family. They've butchered them, is essentially what they've done over the course of their trilogy. So if you look at The Force Awakens, you look at the things that happen, and really just the poor taste of the arrangement, it would have been impossible, really. There's sort of one scenario that would have potentially worked, and Rian Johnson, I think, saw that and was exploring and leading to that. The thing that people really complain about is the explanation of why Luke Skywalker was hiding. And, I think you're missing the point, which is the person that needs to explain why Luke Skywalker was hiding is the person that hid him the entire movie of Episode 7. And Rian Johnson is the one who has to explain to the audience why he's not there when Han Solo is stabbed in the heart by his son. And, you tell me why that is. I would have difficulty writing that myself. There's also all of these elements that J.J. Abrams throws out without knowing what they are. This is his writing process. He calls it the magic box process, which is you have this magic box and you don't know what's in it, and isn't that exciting? Well, it's exciting and perhaps interesting, but at the end of the story, the author has to tell you what's in the box. Otherwise, he's wasted your time. You look at the Lost saga. That's J.J. Abrams. He throws all of these things out, and we're saying, okay, well, better explain all this at the end, and you can't explain it. So he throws all of these magic box things at you, and Disney prioritizes their identity politics over arranging something that's consistent with the storyline. Rian Johnson, I think, looks at a lot of these elements. He goes, this doesn't make sense. I have too many things. And he wisely slashes and burns a lot of these elements and tries to focus on Kylo Ren and Rey, and making an appropriate send-off for Luke Skywalker, which I think actually he accomplishes. And I give him credit that I say that The Last Jedi is the only Disney film, and this includes, Rogue One and other ones, that creates any sort of scene with emotional resonance with the audience. I think the scene where Kylo Ren kills Snoke, I think that was an interesting, cool scene. And I think actually that the death of Luke Skywalker and the way that the film builds up to his return, I think that actually works very well. It works like a sort of Western movie where you've got Clint Eastwood and he just, doesn't want to engage and he's off on the distance, but finally he comes back. And the way that he goes out is a very beautiful ode to that character, which is that he is selfless and compassionate, and that's the way that he wins. He wins not by striking people down, but he wins by revealing that compassion. So that movie, actually, I give him credit for that. And there's other elements that are in there, and I think Disney was forcing those on him. But then, J.J. Abrams comes back and he reconstitutes the mask, which was destroyed, to try and humanize that character, and just makes a big ugly mess of the thing. And I think that it's appropriate that he owns that mess that he created. So my thoughts on the Disney films: they can't be recognized as a part of the Lucasfilms. Ironically, it's perhaps a very big blessing that Rian Johnson wrote the ending to Luke Skywalker, because if there is going to be a retcon, there's probably something to do with the multiverse, that he's maybe somewhere else and he's projecting himself into it. But really, I mean, if we're ranking the films outside of the 6, I'm going to go with the animated Clone Wars adventure at number 7, which created or led into that animated series, which I understand was very good. I know Lucas was involved in that. I didn't, I was kind of adult, not watching cartoons and that kind of stuff. I'll go with The Last Jedi, and then I'll probably go with the 2 Ewok adventures. I'll go with the Wookiee Christmas special, and Rogue One and these types of things. Rogue One, I mean, this is another one. People that like this movie, this is, for me, it's a swing and a miss. This is an odd movie that doesn't really know what its audience is. It's like this gritty war picture about, an androgynous man and woman that are working together, but they have no, it was funny to me because my girlfriend wanted to see this movie, and I said, well, Vader's in it. So, I mean, this is why we go see the movies, to see the last remnants of the things that Disney inherited as they kind of destroy them. And, she was confused, didn't really understand and like the movie. And it's because, girls like to see the happy ending. They like to see the boy and the girl kiss at the end. And, Disney that's not what they're wanting to do. And the movie was a miss for me because, I don't like watching androgynous women fighting people. I like to, see a hero that I can identify with. So that one's a miss for me too. The droid, I think, was kind of funny. The sarcastic droid, he was kind of cool, but that's about it. And then, the last ones for me are going to be, Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker. These movies, you can put them in a dumpster and set them on fire. I've actually given some thought to investigating Disney as president to find out what happened to the drafts that Lucas gave them, and I want to get the notes about what happened when they were arranging the trilogy. I want to hear the thought process and see how they arrived where they arrived. I want to find out if they were targeting any specific groups, if they decided that they wanted to favor certain groups over others. I think we need to get to the bottom of that, because this sort of cultural parasitism, as I call it, this is not okay, where these corporations buy classic, cherished American iconic characters, and they, fill them up with whatever garbage they want to fill them up with, and use them as a vessel for their agenda, and, effectively destroy them and use them up, take out a few $1 billion before the audience figures out what's happened, and, then they move on to the next enterprise. And we have to put a stop to this. So I'll segue into this. I wasn't thinking to go political, but there is going to be the Defense of Culture Act, and that'll be something that we'll be looking into. So stay tuned on that. The saga continues. Okay, thanks, guys. Bye.